Hello everyone, this is Kaijusaurus G2K, and today I have a video sharing my thoughts on this semi-controversial discussion on whether or not the three classic Toho Kaiju, Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, were underused in King of the Monsters. Mind you that this isn't me saying I hate the legendary version of these characters. I really respect and appreciate the creative choices and designs behind the Titans. I believe director Michael Dougherty and the creative team behind King of the Monsters did their all when revamping the classic Toho trio to modern cinema, while also staying true to the spirit of the originals. Though that doesn't mean that they're flawless in design, and their roles in the story may have been downplayed and didn't quite live up to the full potential. So with that said, we're going to talk about this divisive topic right now. We're going to start off with the fire demon himself, Rodan. On just a design level, I think he's the closest of the three titans that's near perfect in design. I love that they took the wings of a vulture and the hasty fire Rodan and merged it into one creature that's both fiery and ferocious. Which is another thing I really like. I like how they capture the personality of the Titans through the elements they represent. Rodan is volcanic, Mothra is bioluminescent, Ghidorah is electrical, and Godzilla is nuclear. While I wouldn't have mind a more scientifically accurate approach to Rodan, this is still a great design for the character. But I'm not here to talk about his design. I'm here to say that Rodan felt like a last-minute addition to King of the Monsters and doesn't really feel like he contributes to the plot aside from world building and completing the roster of the Big Four. First of all, notice the first scene Rodan appears. He erupts out of the volcano, which is actually a really neat homage to his 1956 debut film. This scene is a thrilling, tense, and fast-paced scene that shows Rodan's capabilities, such as taking out the fighter jets, flying at supersonic speeds, which causes winds that demolishes an entire small town, and is able to pick up pace with the USS Argo. While I can talk about all the technical things that are wrong about the scene, such as the cinematography, the oversaturated orange-red color grading, and not caring about the human cast inside the USS Argo, this sequence is arguably the largest scene with Rodan in it. But once Rodan fights Ghidorah, he gradually becomes less and less prominent in screen time. His role is reduced to just a few minutes of screen time. He gets beaten by Ghidorah, becomes a servant for a little bit, fights Mothra in Boston only to get stabbed by her, and lays there in the ground for a couple minutes until he becomes Godzilla's servant. All of that happens in just 3 to 4 minutes of when Rodan is actually on screen, which honestly feels like a waste of a great character. Rodan barely has anything to do, and his role as Ghidorah's servant never really pans out, as he doesn't really help Ghidorah fight against Godzilla, who is their true opponent. Heck, he never even meets Godzilla until he is crowned the King of the Monsters at the end of the movie. The point I'm trying to make is that Rodan feels more useless in this film as the film goes on. He barely contributes anything to the plot of the movie aside from completing the roster of the 4 Toho Kaiju. He only has one scene where he truly shines, which is the volcano scene, and he never fights Godzilla or meets him until the end of the movie. And his role as Ghidorah's loyal servant never really pans out, as he doesn't assist Ghidorah to fight other titans aside from Mothra, and doesn't help his three-headed alien buddy in his fight against the true opponent Godzilla. Next up is the Queen of the Monsters herself, Mothra, and oh boy, I have a lot of things to say about her that'll probably get some of you guys angry, but let's dive into it. I've come to really dislike her design. In my opinion, her body and abdomen is way too small, her arms and legs barely resemble insect legs, and her head is a little too small. The head and wing designs, however, are my favorite things about her design, so it isn't all bad. I should specify that I don't hate this interpretation of Mothra. I'm just not too fond of her design. Their intentions were to make her more elegant and battle-ready, which I get that, but she looks weaker and more fragile compared to previous Mothra designs. This Mothra is more like a dog, rabbit, praying mantis, and moth hybrid than Mothra herself. I actually prefer her larva Mothra design in this movie way more than her final imago form. So that's enough about her design, me ranting about her design. So what about her role in the film? I think conceptually, Mothra was done very well on just a conceptual level, as the film establishes that her species and Godzilla's have a symbiotic relationship, which is a meta reference to some of the past Godzilla movies, though they've also been enemies as well. The scenes that best show this connection is when Mothra appears over the location where Godzilla's resting and showing her God Ray abilities to pinpoint the characters where Godzilla, and of course the final battle. Mothra swoops down from the heavens to attack Ghidorah, only for her to sacrifice herself to give her energy to Godzilla, as Ghidorah slays her. But here's my problem with all that. She exists only as a plot device, or Deus Ex Machina if you will, to revive Godzilla. She does not exist to function as her own character. We never see her on her own, or come to interact with the human characters more. Speaking of which, the only time she interacts with the humans, or specifically Madison and Emma Russell, was at the start of the film, hinting that Maddie and Mothra would form a special bond that could pay off later. But no, after that scene, she never interacts with any of the human characters. Remember how in the Toho movies, Mothra, even in her imago form, interacted and got up close and personal with humans? Yeah, in this film, she has little to no interaction with any human characters, especially with the very first character she formed a bond with earlier, Emma and Madison. Which is strange because I honestly thought we were going to get a scene where Mothra in her Maigo form was going to get up close and personal with the two female leads and remember them as the first people she befriended after being born and would protect them at any cost. Unfortunately, there was never a scene where Madison, Emma, Mark, or any of the USS Argo crew cheering her or using the Orca device to call out Mothra for assistance. The only other characters to have any spiritual connection to her are, of course, the twin sisters, Eileen Chan and Lin Chan, whom are the Shobijin of the Monsterverse. As shown in the Mothra hatching scene, the Mothra, Queen of the Monsters scene, and a brief shot of her being illuminated by Mothra's God rays in the Boston battle. Aside from those scenes, their spiritual and symbiotic relationship isn't really developed or further explored, aside from it just being there to remind us of what the Toho films also did, but those films did it way better than what King of the Monsters did. It also doesn't help that her limited screen time and the film's pacing didn't really allow for all this to develop properly. So in conclusion, I do really feel like Mothra was underused in King of the Monsters. Not only do I not like her design, but I feel like she only existed to revive Godzilla from, after the whole Oxygen Destroyer thing, and her connection to the human characters and her spiritual connection wasn't really that explored because the film just brushes by a lot of the meaningful moments, the moments that are supposed to build character and explore ideas and explore like what the character is really all about. I feel like, that wasn't really explored enough and was wasted because of the film script, just brushing by a lot of the scenes and just getting straight to the action. Mothra deserved way more than what we saw in Godzilla King of the Monsters, to be honest with you. Last but not least is the three-headed golden demise himself, King Ghidorah. And before we get to the negatives, let's start with the positives. I really like his design. It's a good blend of being faithful to the Toho character while also being a modern and updated take on the character. My favorite thing about his design is his wings, which take a more wyvern European dragon approach, while his head and necks take an Asian dragon approach. Whenever he's on screen, your eyes are always attached to this character as he gets on the top of the volcano, or he sprouts his wings to let out his otherworldly alpha call, or when he's fighting Godzilla and he lets out that lightning that show in the middle of the city that's similar to what Grand Ghidorah did in the Mothra trilogy. It's scenes like that really catch your eye, and it shows that this character is alive, that this character emotes, and this character, is an expressive villain that Godzilla faces. I also really appreciate that they retain many of the classic attributes such as the gravity beams, his otherworldly origins, and how he contributes to the plot of the movie and the mythos of the Monsterverse. In my opinion, the Monsterverse Ghidorah is the only Toho Titan out of the three that actually felt necessary to the plot of the film, functioning as the antagonist as he usually does. Plus, the Bear McCreary soundtrack for Ghidorah was awesome, something I did forget to mention with Mothra as well. With the positives out of the way, I'm going to talk about why he felt underutilized in King of the Monsters, why King Ghidorah failed as an antagonist. When I said that Ghidorah failed as the antagonist, I don't mean that in the story function, because he does fulfill the purpose of what an antagonist does, being the opposite force against the hero. I'm more referring to how he was utilized, and I've come to the conclusion that Monsterverse Ghidorah is nowhere near as powerful as a lot of fans say he is. And to prove that, let's take a look at the three battles between Godzilla and Ghidorah. First, the Antarctica battle, which is in the first act of the film, and the first time Godzilla and Ghidorah meet. Ghidorah is frozen in ice, a monarch outpost is built around him, and it's been said that Godzilla trapped Ghidorah in the ice millions of years ago. The terrorist group led by Jonah Allen, or Alan Jonah, and Emma Russell used detonators to explode the ice, which unleashes the three-headed beast into the world. Ghidorah wanders around, confused and discombobulated. He looks at the soldiers down on him, and after absorbing them, he fires his gravity beam onto the soldiers, basically frying them. He inches closer to where the main characters are until Godzilla arrives to the Arctic and sees Ghidorah. Both charge at each other after recognizing each other, and then once Godzilla attacks him, you already see Godzilla dominate Ghidorah, grabbing two of his necks and pinning him down to the ground. The three-headed Hydra then proceeds to spam his gravity beams on Godzilla, before Godzilla unleashes his atomic breath back on him. Ghidorah's three hits fire back and pushes Godzilla into the outpost and accidentally destroys it. Godzilla grapples Ghidorah a little more, and then the USS Argo and the military arrive to attack. Realizing he's outnumbered and unable to fight Godzilla more, Ghidorah retreats, visibly on screen, and even the official novelization of the film confirms this. Next up is the Isla de Mar Mexico scene that takes place shortly after Rodan's awakening. The three-headed alien flies towards the USS Argo. Godzilla leaps out of the water and bites down on one of his necks. Both titans wrestle underwater, with Godzilla taking the upper hand as he bites off Ghidorah's left head. Then suddenly, the Oxygen Destroyer is launched by the government and it hits Godzilla, almost killing him. Ghidorah survives the attack with his left head still decapitated. flies to the top of the volcano, regenerates his left head, and lets out his otherworldly alpha call to unleash hell on Earth by awakening the other Titans. Let's take a closer look at this scene. I really love the symbolism with this shot. Not only is it visually beautiful, it depicts Ghidorah as the literal devil unleashing hell or the apocalypse, and his alpha call adds to this alienness as he's painting the world with his own image. With that out of the way though, I'll just get to what this scene shows of Ghidorah and his weaknesses. Godzilla bites down on him and then he drowns him underwater. Ghidorah, you can see, is struggling to move around and is trying to get out of the water, but Godzilla is grappling with him. As you can see, it shows that Godzilla is in his element and Ghidorah is so out of his element. You may recall that in past films, Ghidorah and Godzilla have also fought underwater, but in those movies, Ghidorah actually put up a good fight underwater with Godzilla. He didn't necessarily beat him, but he did struggle to fight the three-headed alien underwater in some of those movies. But in this movie, Ghidorah is the one that's struggling, and Godzilla is the one that's actually having the upper hand. Godzilla then bites off his left head, and it was confirmed in the auto commentary of the film that Ghidorah would have actually died if all three of his heads were bitten off. Here we see Godzilla bite off his necks and would have killed Godzilla had the oxygen destroyer never interfered. Ghidorah also relies on radiation to regenerate, which is why his head doesn't actually grow back until he's on top of the volcano. He absorbs the radiation, and the King of the Monsters official movie novelization even confirms this. So to sum up this whole scene, Ghidorah is not a very good underwater fighter, and he struggles to escape as Godzilla grapples and tries to drown him. And without the oxygen destroyer, Godzilla would have destroyed Ghidorah by biting off all of his heads. And his head regeneration only happens in this scene, and it is not a natural ability that he already has. He relies on radiation, as you see in the movie, and the novelization even confirms this, that he grows his head back. And without the use of nuclear radiation or electrical energy, which he does use later on, he would have been more susceptible to injury or even death. Which takes us to the final battle in Boston. After Ghidorah arrives to Boston and nearly kills Madison, Godzilla attacks Ghidorah with his atomic breath. Both monsters stare at each other briefly and charge at each other. Godzilla throws Ghidorah, swipes him with his tail. Ghidorah fights back, and his three heads bite Godzilla in the neck and shoulder area, carrying him a few blocks before Godzilla blasts him with the atomic breath. Throughout the battle, you see Godzilla use mostly physical force as he slams Ghidorah through several buildings, charging Ghidorah head-on and only using the atomic breath when necessary. Ghidorah, on the other hand, relies mostly on his gravity beams, tries to take bites at Godzilla, and remember what I said earlier that he needed nuclear and electrical energy to regenerate? He bites one of the electrical towers to charge up and light up the sky, literally, to push Godzilla away and heal his injuries. Then Godzilla and Ghidorah just stand there and do nothing for 3 minutes. Well, in the middle of that, Rodan and Mothra fight. Mothra did attack Ghidorah earlier, but here she's fighting Rodan because Rodan distracted her. Remember when I said that Rodan was the current servant to Ghidorah, since Ghidorah had control over the Titans, including Rodan? Here Rodan only fights Mothra, but never helps his three-headed alien buddy in fighting Godzilla, despite the fact that Rodan allied with Ghidorah a few moments ago. Overall, this final battle is just okay, but it isn't anything that spectacular or anything that creative, since we have seen the final battle in a city with multiple kaiju happen in so many other movies set at night as well, and most of it is one-sided, that being Godzilla having the upper hand over Ghidorah. The one time Ghidorah actually does do harm on Godzilla is when he carries Godzilla to the edge of this atmosphere or stratosphere and drops him 50,000 feet, landing on his back. On a side note, how did Godzilla survive this fall? That would actually kill him. Plus, that entire scene is just laughably bad. Anyways, Ghidorah flies back to Earth. Mothra sacrifices herself to save Godzilla, giving her energy transfer to Godzilla to give him an energy boost to revive. But Ghidorah bites Godzilla and attempts to drain his energy, but Emma activates the Orca to distract Ghidorah long enough for Godzilla to rise up and destroy King Ghidorah with the burning form. The sheer force of the blast is enough to melt away Ghidorah's wings and heads to the point where he can't even regenerate from that. And so Godzilla just finishes him and destroys Ghidorah once and for all. With all the battles covered, here's what I've learned. In the first battle, Ghidorah is visibly confused and disoriented after being frozen in ice for millions of years. He and Godzilla meet, and Godzilla right off the bat overpowers him physically, which then results to Ghidorah relying on his gravity beams to attack and retreat, since he couldn't take him head on. Then in the Mexico scene, he would have died at the hands of Godzilla had there been no oxygen destroyer, since this version of Ghidorah can't fight underwater, and when he had to regenerate, he needed radiation from the volcano, so his regeneration isn't something he naturally has. Finally, the Boston battle shows just how much Ghidorah struggled to take on Godzilla, who was even more powerful than before, and had to drop him from the stratosphere to seriously injure him, only for Mothra and the humans to revive/interfere with the battle to help the G-Man kill Ghidorah. I'm very disappointed with how Ghidorah wasn't as powerful as he should have been. He wasn't weak per se, and yes, he did cause a lot of destruction directly and indirectly, but he never felt like a true challenge to Godzilla. As Godzilla always had the upper hand and nearly killed him in the second act of the film, the monsterverse Ghidorah relied more on special attacks than physical attacks, and Godzilla didn't had a problem dealing with his enemy, at least before the Oxygen Destroyer happened. Why does the monsterverse Ghidorah feel weaker, not that scary or threatening as he should have been? Don't you think it would have been better for if most of the movie Ghidorah was the one giving Godzilla a hard time? Godzilla had to struggle to deal with this massive creature who has a lot of advantages over him? He almost would have died by King Ghidorah alone and with no outside interference, because that would have made Ghidorah a genuine threat to the world and a true opponent to the hero. Villains are not only the opposites of the hero, they are supposed to attack the hero's strengths and give them a real tough time to deal with. Movies like The Dark Knight Rises, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, Silence of the Lambs, and Avengers Infinity War all showed how big of a threat the villain was, and how the heroes constantly failed to defeat their opponents in those movies. That's what I wanted with the monsterverse Ghidorah, but instead we get a nerfed down Ghidorah, who has a very good design that's true to the original, as well as having a villainous personality that's like the original, whose rivalry with Godzilla never felt that impactful to me, and Godzilla was the one who gave Ghidorah a hard time. The arch enemy of Godzilla lost in all 3 battles in the movie, as well as never feeling like a real threat to be dealt with, since most of the destruction wasn't even caused by him, and it was just off-screen. Now you can see why I think King Ghidorah in the Monsterverse not only failed as the antagonist, but felt underused in his very first appearance in an American Godzilla movie. It's a shame too, since I wanted the monsterverse Ghidorah to be a force to be reckoned with, and actually be a monster that was not only hard to kill, but feel like a true Lovecraftian nightmare that wanted to take over the world, which is the concept they were going for, but the execution was what failed to live up to that standard. Instead, they turned Ghidorah into a meme. Yeah. So with that rant over, and now that you heard my opinions on why I think Rodan, Mothra, and Ghidorah were underused, what do I think could have been done to improve things? First off, I will tweak the designs of Mothra and King Ghidorah. Rodan, I wouldn't really change the designs at all. The only thing I would change is probably his roars. That's actually one thing I did forget to mention about Rodan. His roars I really did not like. Mothra, I would change a lot. I mean, keep the wing designs of Mothra and kind of keep the face design, but the whole body design, I think that needs a revamp. Give her a more insect-like appearance, take notes from the GNK Mothra, who had a very insectoid-like appearance. And I would also take inspiration probably from the Rebirth of Mothra versions as well. Give her a little bit more of an angular, give her a little bit more of a battle-ready appearance, because the monsterverse Mothra is just horrible in design. That does not look battle-ready. That looks weak-looking, in my opinion. Ghidorah, I would change his head and neck designs a little bit, because they look kind of generic, to be honest with you. And I would also add extra little details like talons on his wings, because notice how he doesn't have talons on the wings, even though one of the toy lines shows that he does. Yeah, that's an extra little detail I would add to monsterverse Ghidorah, and give him more of a fiercer, more lizard-like look on his head and necks. Give him a more dragon-looking appearance, because the actual design that we got is not that fierce-looking. It's more cute-looking, to be honest with you. And finally, I would expand the rules in King of the Monsters. In my version of King of the Monsters, I would remove the other Titans, the Titans that we didn't get to see. The ones that were hidden in different outposts all over the world. I would remove that and just focus on Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah, because that way the screen time of the movie narrows down to each Titan having their own respective moments to shine and moments to, expand their characters and how they relate and bounce back to Godzilla. Because I feel like in King of the Monsters, the version King of the Monsters we got, didn't really focus on that, because it was more of a 1 versus 1 versus 1, but it was all crammed until the last 30 minutes of the movie. And we had that whole Titan apocalypse that was caused by Ghidorah. And so you can remove that section, because that section did not feel necessary to the movie. It felt like an afterthought. So I would narrow it down to just Godzilla fighting Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan. Or better yet, have Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan all team up to fight King Ghidorah. Similar to Ghidorah, the three-headed monster. Because remember how in that movie, Godzilla even had to struggle to fight King Ghidorah? He, Mothra, and Rodan had to team up to take down the three-headed alien. And even their alliance wasn't that easy, because they had to fight each other, and they didn't trust each other at first. But then Mothra convinced Godzilla and Rodan to put their differences aside and team up to fight the main threat, who was King Ghidorah. So that's the notes I would take. And finally, I would make King Ghidorah a big bad villain. I would actually give him all the power to make the hero really struggle. Make our hero Godzilla really struggle in the story, like injure Godzilla, like almost kill him. Because in the movie, he never really does that. And anything that almost killed Godzilla was either an external threat, like the Oxygen Destroyer, or Ghidorah's one shot of almost killing him, which when he dropped in 50,000 feet from the air. But I would make King Ghidorah a lot more scarier and a lot more intimidating in my version of King of the Monsters, and actually give him a tough time with Godzilla. You know, Godzilla would struggle to fight with this King Ghidorah, and he would need to team up with Rodan and Mothra to take him down. This wraps up my section on how Ghidorah could have been done a lot better and how he failed as the antagonist, and this overall concludes my whole Did Rodan, Mothra, and Ghidorah fail underused in King of the Monsters video. This was technically my 300 subs special because as I was making this video, my channel hit 300 subscribers, so thank you everybody for subscribing to my channel. So this was the whole video right here, and what do you guys think? Do you think Rodan, Mothra, and Ghidorah fell underused in King of the Monsters? Let me know in the comments section down below, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video to everybody else.